Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. Today's video is going to be the first of a new series of videos that I'm going to produce to sort of make learning sim a bit easier for new players, as it can be very daunting to begin with. So straight off the bat today, we're going to have a look at the two different game modes that are available for sim in reference to air battles. Another video will be done on ground sim. Today's focus is going to be on air sim. So what you need to do is to find the sim games, just go into your events tab, and there'll be one here that says air simulator battles. So you just click on that, and then you go down here and you click where it says room list, and this brings up a sort of room lobby. So you have two game modes. You have operations and enduring confrontation. Operation missions are 1 hour long, enduring confrontation missions are 3 hours in length. You can jump in and out of the games as you please, but you will be restricted to the aircraft lineup that you first used when you initially entered that particular game. Now you have rooms that are created by the game, and you have custom rooms created by the players, which is in this tab here, so you can open and close that, and all of these are automatically generated by the game itself. Now, there is a number next to each game. Now, this is the tier of the game itself. So you get 6 tiers in simulator battles. So you've got tier 1, which goes from battle rating 1.0 to 2.0. And then, like this one here, you have tier 2, which is battle rating 2.3 to 3.3. Tier 3 is 3.7 to 4.7. Tier 4 is 5.0 to 6.3. Tier 5 is 6.7 to 7.7, and Tier 6 is 8.0 to the current maximum of 10.3. Bear in mind, with these battle rating brackets, you are still allowed to bring in aircraft below the minimum tier for that match. So if you were to join a Tier 3 game, even though it says 3.7 to 4.7, under here it says allowed vehicles, you can go anywhere in that bracket. So you can take stuff that's under tiered, because sometimes even under-tiered aircraft still work very, very well in these games. So moving on to the game modes, operations are essentially similar in many ways to AirRB games. However, you can bring more than one plane. There are usually multiple objectives to complete, as well as bases to bomb as well. Now with these games, you only get one respawn per aircraft, so once you get shot down in a particular plane, that's its use done for the game. Now, enduring confrontation is a bit different, and that is the main topic that I'm going to be focusing on for the rest of this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with explaining the spawn mechanics for the game, because they are very different, and then we're going to move on to the objectives in enduring confrontation, and then in the closing sections of the video I'm going to make some recommendations to just sort of improve your general experience when first going into enduring confrontation, if it is something you're new to. So spawning in Enduring Confrontation, you get an unlimited amount of respawns, providing you have enough spawn points to spawn in those planes. For example, if you are in a Tier 6 game, you will only be able to spawn initially in an aircraft that has either a battle rating of between 8.0 to 9.0, as you start the game with only 200 spawn points. Now you get spawn points for doing various things, scoring hits on enemy planes, getting kills, getting assists, bombing ground targets, be they bases, tanks or artillery pieces, will also net you spawn points, so that works for bombers and attackers. Now a note for bomber pilots though, landing a plane successfully doesn't generate any more spawn points, but what it will do is return the spawn points you used for that flyout, should you wish to change over to a different aircraft after landing. Now, if you get shot down, you will lose the spawn points equivalent to the cost of the aircraft you've spawned in. Now, provided you at least bring an aircraft with the minimum BR or lower for the match, you will always be able to respawn in anything, as anything at the minimum or lower will have no associated spawn cost with it. Now, if you lose an aircraft with a BR above the starting level, all aircraft of the same type with this BR will be temporarily locked for respawning. So for example, with my lineup on my screen here, if say I got shot down in the 109 F1, It would also lock out the 190A1 as well, because they're the same battle rating and they're the same class of aircraft. They're both fighters. So the duration of the lockout depends on the aircraft's battle rating. So the minimum lockout time is 5 minutes and the maximum is 30. This mechanism is in place to basically prevent people clubbing an entire match in a top tier aircraft, and it puts an emphasis on using your aircraft efficiently and conscientiously. There is no lockout time for aircraft at the minimum BR or anything lower, so you can just keep pumping those out. Now, along with spawn points, you also pay a deposit in Silver Lions whenever you spawn in. So in Enduring Confrontation, you aren't charged any Silver Lions to repair lost or destroyed aircraft, but you do pay Silver Lions for each new aircraft that you take out into the battle. So the amount paid is shown at the bottom of the aircraft's card in your lineup, which you can see here. Now, you will be charged Silver Lions the moment you take your aircraft out into the battle. However, if you keep yourself alive, land safely, and either repair or leave that aircraft once the repairs are complete, you won't need to pay the Silver Lion deposit again the next time you take off in that aircraft for this battle. Now, if you don't lose that particular aircraft during the entire game, your Silver Lion deposit will actually be refunded at the end of the match. So staying alive can make a big difference to your bottom line, especially if your aircraft has a high repair cost. So with the basic spawn mechanics out of the way, we'll move on to victory conditions and objectives in Enduring Confrontation. So the match can be won in a few ways. Number one, if the match runs for the full 3 hours, the team with the most victory points at the end wins. Pretty simple. The match will also end if a team accumulates a total of 150,000 victory points before the 3 hours are elapsed. The other way the match can be won is if all airfields are destroyed. However, this isn't really possible anymore because there are now 6 airfields per team. There used to be 3 airfields per team until I think about 4 or 5 months ago. So back then matches could be ended with the destruction of all 3, but now it's very difficult. So victory points can be earned by destroying enemy targets, completing objectives, and winning battles along the front line. So Enduring Confrontation represents an active, evolving battlefield. So the front line is one of the unique game mechanics found in this particular game mode. So the front line runs along the borders of adjacent map centers and is it's color coded to define which side of the front belongs to which team. So red and blue, basically, really simple. So at the beginning of each game, the front line extends along the middle sectors of the map, but as the game progresses, it will shift and move. Now the shift in the front line is caused by the results of ground battles, or skirmishes as they're called, that will periodically spawn during the game. Now these ground battles are fought by AI vehicles, and a successful attack gives control of the current sector to the victor and moves the front line accordingly. Now, as a player, you can affect the outcome of these battles by attacking ground targets, be they tanks, pillboxes, or artillery pieces, depending on the battle. Now, if no players participate in either side, the attacking side will always win, so be wary of that. Another thing to be wary of with these battles is when a front line gets close to your airfield, that could be an issue. So if your airfield is in a sector that is lost by your team at the end of that battle, your airfield will cease to function until that sector is recaptured by your team. So that's something to bear in mind, especially if you've got a pretty good airfield location. Sometimes all of them are located at the back of the map and then you've got one at the front. You want to try and protect that so that you've got that sort of forward base to take off from and not have to travel as far. Now, airfields are of vital importance, obviously. It's where you'll spawn into the game. Now, unlike other game modes, the airfield is modular in nature, meaning that multiple parts of the airfield must be destroyed individually before it can be neutralized as a whole. So the 4 modular components of the airfield consist of its runway, its hangars, personnel tent-looking things, and a fuel depot, which is usually surrounded by 4 towers. Now, on the map, these modules are represented by 4 coloured markers around the airfield icon itself. The colour of the markers represent the state in which each module is sitting. So green means it's operating normally, yellow represents moderate damage, red represents heavy damage, and black means that the module has been destroyed and no longer functions. So these modules will determine how quickly your aircraft will be repaired, rearmed, and refueled. So always check the status of an airfield before coming into land, because you might end up getting a ridiculous repair time of 30 minutes or something like that if you've been caught out. Now in Enduring Confrontation, the airfields are spawned randomly on the map. So when the game starts, the server will choose 6 locations on each side for airfields to spawn. At the beginning of the game, each team knows the locations of their own airfields, but not the enemies. So enemy airfields can be discovered visually by being in the air at a sufficient altitude, but in order to detect the airfield and have it appear on the map itself, you do need to fly close enough to it within a range of a few kilometers regardless of the altitude you're currently at. Now the status of allied and known enemy airfields are displayed above the victory points bar in the top middle of your screen, so that'll always give you a good reference to the condition of your airfields and how many enemy airfields are known to your team at the time. Along with progressing the frontline, defending and attacking airfields, there are also multiple objectives that will spawn throughout the game. These objectives will yield additional victory points should your team complete them successfully. Now, at the moment, there are 5 different objectives that can spawn this way. So number 1, you've got air supremacy sectors. So this requires your team to capture a specific sector in the game. So this is represented by an A point on your map. Now, the capture point extends across the entire sector in terms of land area and up to an altitude ceiling of 6,000 meters. A limited amount of time is allotted to this objective, and only player-controlled aircraft contribute to its capture. So if the objective is completed, a land battle will be generated in either the same sector as the objective or the one adjacent to it, with the capturing team being the attacking faction in this new land battle. So capturing the A point will allow your team to spawn a battle which can then advance your front line. Now the second objective that you can do is to either cover or destroy a surveillance aircraft. So this is a single AI controlled aircraft that comes in from the controlling team's rear of the map and proceeds to fly around enemy territory at a certain altitude. Now that altitude does depend on the game's tier, so low tier they'll obviously be lower than high tier. Shooting down an enemy surveillance aircraft will yield victory points. It's as simple as that. The third objective you can do is destroying enemy bases. So 3 bases will spawn for each team, much like in other air battle modes already. So destroying the base will yield points, and they will periodically respawn in different parts of the map after they've been destroyed. Can't get more simple than that. The fourth objective you can do is cover or destroy enemy attackers or bombers. So periodically a group of AI-controlled attackers or bombers will spawn in. The attackers will spawn in groups of 9 and the bombers will spawn in groups of 6. Both are escorted by 2 AI-controlled fighters. They enter the battle again from the allied team's rear and proceed to a certain objective. So for the bombers, that'll usually be an enemy base, and for the attackers, they will go to the last active ground battle that basically populated in the game. So they can also help you win ground battles. So if you protect those attackers especially, they can help turn the tide in those skirmishes. So always good to protect those. And conversely, on the enemy team, attackers and bombers that are AI controlled, it's some real easy pickings if no one's defending them, and it's a good way of getting some, pretty easy spawn points, especially if you're struggling. Now the fifth objective you can do is cover or destroy a vehicle convoy. So this objective is in the form of a column of AI vehicles made up from tanks, trucks, and mobile AA guns, basically. It advances from the rear of the allied part of the map, heading for the front line. Now when it reaches its target sector, it will lead to the generation of a ground battle, where the allied team is the attacker. Again, so that's another way of advancing the front line, and if you successfully destroy your enemy convoy, you get victory points. Something to bear in mind with convoys with the lower tiers, the AA can be surprisingly accurate. So if you're in slightly slower aircraft, just be wary of your altitude and angle of attack, because they can catch you out. Now completing these objectives, destroying enemy aircraft and disabling airfields will allow your team to generate victory points and ultimately win the game, providing you can do it better and faster than the other side, of course. So teamwork and good communication is key, and it matters more in this game mode than any other in the game, I can guarantee that. Now, I'd like to finish off with just a few general recommendations. I'm trying to not have these videos too long. I'm trying to make them quite concise. So I just want to finish off by saying, you know, make sure with your lineup that at least you have one plane with the minimum BR requirement. That way you can always respawn, even if you're having a bad run of luck on the battlefield. So with this lineup here again, I take this into tier 3, which is a rating of 2.3 to 3.3, but I actually even have a 2.0 plane in here, which is the 109E1, and it does perfectly fine. And because it's below minimum BR, I can just respawn it as many times as I want, no matter how crap I'm playing, so always a good thing to do. The other advice I can give in terms of lineups is go in with a varied lineup. So if you take nothing but dedicated fighters, it will limit your ability to be flexible and adjust to the changing situation of the game. I always like to bring in a dedicated ground attacker and a bomber, and if possible, a fighter that particularly excels at high altitude interception rather than straight up dogfighting, so that's more for hunting bombers basically. It also helps to keep the game fresh because, you know, respawning in the same thing over and over again can definitely get a bit dry, unless it's an aircraft that you particularly love. And having a varied lineup also means that if you get shot down, you won't be locked out of respawning with other planes, because remember, if you get shot down in a certain plane, the rest of its tier gets locked out if it's above minimum BR. Another point I want to make as well, in terms of BR, is top BR doesn't mean always better performance. More stock is definitely put on a pilot's skill than the wings he flies on. I've been beaten and humbled many times by aircraft of a far lower BR than mine, but being flown in much more capable hands than myself. So, you know, even if you've got some spawn points and you're able to get in your top tier plane for the match, don't immediately think you're in a clubbing machine, because that can change incredibly quickly. Now, if you are new to Sim and this all feels like a massive overload of information, don't worry. The objectives of the match are fairly self-explanatory, and there are many players out there that will lend you assistance. You know, never be afraid to tell people you're new to the game, and new to Sim especially. Almost all of us here are here to help, and we've all been new at one point, and, you know, we just want to make this game as fun as we can, and, you know, we love seeing new players join Sim, because it is, you know, a bit more of a niche community in the game, and it takes a bit of effort to get into. So, you know, we like to help when we can. So, you know, just definitely find yourself a plane, jump in, ask for some help if you need it, and just have a lot of fun. My next tutorial is going to be on some basic flight mechanics, controller setup, and how to improve your general accuracy as a pilot in terms of getting your guns onto your targets. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and more importantly, I hope you found it helpful. If there's anything you feel that I missed, please let me know in the comments section, and if there's a topic that you particularly want me to cover, comment here as well, or reach out to me in my Discord as well. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and Oscar 7.